Here we go. Happy Monday. Welcome to the Wise Guys, the largest BYU sports live stream show in the entire world, presented by Brady Plus, distributed by the Deseret News. The new podcast comes out tomorrow. Wherever you get podcasts, Dave McCann and Blaine Fowler. We're still undefeated.
Yeah. Well, the show's been undefeated for 2 years, but the team is undefeated now, 7-0, and it's just made for a really fun week every week for us.
Great.
Every week is fun for us with all the shows that we do. When you're covering a 7-0 team, it's just fun, right? Yeah. So make sure you join the fun with us every week. Subscribe to our free email at wiseguys.com, wiseguys.com. You can also watch all of our past content, including every interview we've done over the past 2.5 years. Just go to the site, wiseguys.com, subscribe to our email, and you scroll down through that guest list.
Yeah. So who's who?
So it surprises me. Like, I was here, and I looked down that list, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that was awesome. Oh, yeah, I remember that one. That was really, really fun.
Story. You bet.
Yeah, there's some amazing stories in there. Also, we'd love it if you're listening to us wherever you're doing it, but subscribe on the YouTube channel as well. So if you're listening to us live on YouTube, or if you're watching it after the fact, subscribe to the YouTube channel. All the stuff we're asking you to do is free, but it helps the show continue to grow and continue to be out there around the world. And last week we had some real fun places in the house.
We're all over the world.
Yeah, we were in South America, right? We were in Central America. We were all over the United States.
Australia.
We were in Australia. We were in Singapore.
We're in Singapore. Philippines.
Yeah, like, we love that people are here from all around the world. You know what? We also love that people right here in Provo, down the street, are listening in and chiming in on the chat. So, hey, everybody's chiming in from Harriman, from Beaumont, Texas, right?
Vernal, Utah.
Cache Valley.
The Provo MTC.
Yep. They're all over the place.
San Diego.
Yep.
Sweet.
San Diego in the house.
Hey, Wise Guys, thrilled to have Brady Plus as our title sponsor. Brady Plus provides cleaning, food service, and packaging equipment, dispensers, and service and repairs with over 150 distribution facilities across the country and over 6,000 employees. And the president is a BYU alum, a good friend of ours, and a strong supporter of the Wise Guys.
Yeah. And you know what? Brady Plus and Travis Brady, they're part of the fabric of what BYU is. I mean, they're involved. Their name is synonymous with BYU and BYU sports. We're so pumped that they're involved with us. We're also really excited that Deseret News is a partner. Is there a bigger name in Utah that's been around longer than the Deseret News? And they're our distribution partner, DeseretNews.com and the Deseret News. Since 1850, the Deseret News has been Utah's newspaper. And watch for our content on social media sites as we serve Cougar Nation all over the world with our distribution partner, Deseret News.
All right, the Philippines is in with us. Puget Sound is with us. Hey. Sandy, Utah. Farmington, Utah. Huntsville, Alabama.
From the Philippines. I always love when Glenn just chimes in from the Philippines.
That just sounds good.
Because it's tomorrow in the Philippines. Sandy is in the house. I was up at the Puget Sound a couple weeks ago. Man, this time of year up there, it's like the Emeralds. It's like the Wizard of Oz. It's amazingly beautiful up there.
Lehigh, Utah, in with us. Here's what we got tonight. We got an awesome show. We think you're going to love it. 7-0, hitting the road for Central Florida after that thrilling come-from-behind win against Oklahoma State. We're going to hear from Kalani Sitaki in just a couple of minutes from what he said just earlier this afternoon.
Yeah, we'll break down last week's game. We're going to preview next week's game, which we love to do every week, especially when they're winning like this. We're also going to visit live with Christian Rasbam, who's heading up the alumni activities in Orlando for this Saturday's games. And it's a perfect start time back there. 3:30, I think, is great. It's not too early for the guys that are playing, and it's enough time to have a great tailgate and have a great morning before the game, and then enjoy the game and not get home too late.
Yeah, it's just perfect. Hey, Timothy from Perth, Australia is on the live stream.
There we
go.
Got
my Aussie Bishop to watch the Oklahoma State game because it was at a reasonable hour, 10:15 a.m. Saturday morning. He said he is now an American football convert. Fantastic. Good to have Australia. There's St. George, another from Lehigh, Arizona.
Drummond, Montana's been in every week. Now, the McKays have been in every week from Drummond, Montana now. They're regulars. So
yeah, you bet. We're going to discuss the future of BYU sports tonight with Elder Clark Gilbert. He is a 70 general authority, and he's the commissioner of church education for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. How do church leaders feel about the direction of BYU sports? with NIL and changes have come with paying players. How do you compete with the elites? If you want to compete in the elites, why are you trying to compete? All these questions and where BYU athletics goes from here in this changing world of the collegiate game. We've got the man with the answers, and we're excited to have him here in just a little bit. Clark Gilbert, Elder Clark Gilbert from the church and the Commissioner of Church Education. He's the boss when it comes to education.
That's right.
And there's BYU Hawaii, there's BYU Idaho, there's BYU Provo, there's BYU Pathways, and you'll be amazed, I think, at some of the things that you'll learn here tonight from Elder Gilbert.
And does Elder Gilbert, I think he's probably also has oversight over like all the church schools down in Tonga and in Fiji and throughout the world where there's church-sponsored schools. We think of all the universities, but there's also church school systems in other places of the world. I know that my mother and father-in-law served in the school system down in Fiji for a time. And so, that's a big responsibility.
Hey, what'd you think of that finish?
My goodness.
Let us know on our live stream. Give us some of your thoughts. It was just amazing. As we sit here today, BYU's 11th in the AP Top 25. They're 12th in the coaches poll, and they're in first place in the Big 12.
Yeah, and I love that even though Iowa State has the same record, on everything that's published, BYU's first. Is that alphabetical?
I don't think so. I think it might have something to do with points.
Whatever it is, I love that BYU is in
No
is
one's
in first
scoring
place.
more points than BYU in the Big 12. Well, what a difference from a year ago.
Wow. Yeah, and what a difference. A year, 4 games under Jake Retzlaff's belt, and then he's been getting better every single game. And now this offense is something to be reckoned with. Gus Malzahn, UCF's head coach, said, man, this is a defense that gives you so many different looks. They're really creative, and it's hard to know what to do against them. And this offense is unbelievably efficient and one of the best offenses in the league. Did we ever think we were going to hear that?
No.
After last year?
No, we did not.
So there you go.
We wondered, and we wondered aloud.
Yeah.
All summer long.
And we thought, can Jake Retzlaff figure out how to take care of the ball? Can he rein it in a little bit? Steve Young even asked that when we had him on the show. Can he do this? It's been a very pleasant surprise at how far this offense has come in such a short period of time. And you know what's really exciting? A lot of young guys on that offense.
Yeah.
This offense is back next year. And so Conrad Monson says, hey, Blaine, what things do you see that parallel the 84 team?
Undefeated.
That's a great question. Yeah, 7-0. Well, the thing that most makes me think about that 84 team is how this team talks all the time about how well they all gel with one another, the culture that they have, this kind of attitude of love and trusting one another. We felt that immediately to begin the year in 84, and we had a couple of tough games. We gutted those games out because of it. And people don't remember, they always think of BYU in offense. In 84, we hung our hat on defense. That 84 defense with Kurt Govea and Leon White and Kyle Morrell and Jim Herman, just to name a few.
Yeah.
I mean, I could go on and on and on. Marv Allen and Kerry Whittingham and Dave Neff. And this was a phenomenal defense. Brad Smith at the nose. The defense kept us in every game. There's a big parallel. This defense, the season started out with the defense carrying this team and the offense coming along. That's exactly what happened in 84. We had a brand new quarterback in Robbie Bosco. I was backing him up that year. I was new. We'd been around, but we hadn't had significant minutes, right? And so the defense held us together while Robbie grew up and while I grew up and played in some games. Those are the parallels. The tight-knit way that this group operates reminds me of that tight-knit group in 84. The way that they trust one another and there's no offense versus defense, that reminds me of 84. And the fact that they're 7-0 reminds me of 84. When they're 13-0, it'll really remind me of 84.
Oh, yeah. I wrote an article today in the Deseret News on the Darius Lassiter touchdown catch. Was that the Kyle Morrell moment for the 2024 group? As Kyle Morrell made that big defensive play against Hawaii. A lot of folks forget that play against Hawaii was in September.
Yeah.
They had 8 more games to win. So
it
it didn't save the season. It just became bigger as the season went. Then it became iconic.
Yeah.
And now the Lassiter catch.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Diane McCann just checking in the house.
She must be bored out of her mind.
What Diane McCann is checking
She's
in.
on the Wise Guys. Hey, everyone. If Diane's on the Wise Guys live stream, everyone
Yeah.
is. All right. Saturday, BYU at UCF, 1:30 Mountain Time, ESPN. Game day starts at 11:30 a.m. Mountain Time on BYU TV and ESPN+. Let's talk about beating Oklahoma State, and we'll hear from Kalani in just a moment. But 38-35, I wished everybody could have been in the stadium, and a lot of folks on the stream were, when Lassiter caught the ball at like the 8, and everyone knew there was no way Oklahoma State was going to keep him out.
No.
And then a magical moment happened as he's in the end zone.
He put the juke of the century on number 6. I can't remember 6's name, but 6 tackled air. Not only did he do a pressure step to the left, he also he took his, they say only Elvis Presley can make a move where you actually move your hips. I think Darius actually moved his hips to the left, took his head fake to the left, and 6 tackled nothing but air as Darius moved to the right and jumped through another tackle. We went nuts up on the set because we couldn't believe it.
I was watching on ESPN's Pardon the Interruption today, and Michael Wilbon was talking about, they were talking about Georgia, Texas, and then he shifted right to BYU, and he said, you know what, BYU isn't good as Georgia, but they're more fun to watch.
Yeah, they are more fun to watch.
Anyway, there's so much good PR coming from that one. It was a Friday night. We'll know how many millions of people were watching later in the week when they put that out. But Lassiter, just 6 catches, 129 yards. His 6th was the game winner. And Jake Retzlaff threw for 218. He ran for 81, ran for a touchdown, threw for 2, and after the first half didn't turn the ball over. That was important.
That was very important. And, BYU, the formula has been the defense forces turnovers, the offense takes care of the ball. That wasn't the case. The offense had some turnovers in this one.
Yeah.
And at least the defense forced a couple that paid off and kept them in the game, and the offense made a play at the end to win this thing. It was fun for me because I feel like the defense was winning more. If you had to put it on one side or the other, and they've been winning together, but you'd give more credit to the defense for almost every win so far. That win was on the offense. They went and made big plays and moved the ball up and down the field and stayed out in front and put all those points on the board, 38 points on the board. This was a win for the offense, which I think even brings this team even closer together. Because the defense can now say, hey, guys, we gave up some big plays. Thanks for having our backs on this one. And we'll come back against Central Florida, and we're going to figure some things out. Didn't plan on that quarterback running around like a crazy man. They're planning on Brown running around. We'll get into that more. But I think now the defense is going to feel like, hey, we owe the offense a payback for this one. It's our turn to step it up again. That's a great, kind of a way to go into this next game at 7-0 with the defense feeling like they have a debt of gratitude that they owe the offense. I love it.
Harrison Taggart had 11 tackles. LJ Martin ran 20 times for 120 yards and a couple of touchdowns. That wasn't a great run-stopping Oklahoma State defense. When BYU got the ball in the third quarter, they ran 7 straight times and got into the end zone to tie the game at 21. It was almost like, look, they can't tackle us. Let's just stay on the ground and get moving.
It reminded me, was it 96 against Utah when Brian McKenzie, and we had Brian on the show, Brian McKenzie and Ronnie Jenkins just teamed up to just run Utah on the ground. Here's the thing, Oklahoma State's a big-time run team, right? 7.3 yards a carry is what they average. BYU averaged 7.1 yards a carry. 255 yards rushing for BYU in that game. That surprised me. Better balance for BYU, 218 yards passing versus 161 for Oklahoma State. And I had to think long and hard. Like, BYU hasn't won a lot of games when they've been -1 in turnover margin. No. But they came up with a way to do it. The offense came up with a way to make a play. 5 of 10 on third downs was better than they've been on offense. They were 2 for 2 on fourth. Maybe the most important play on the last drive outside of the touchdown was the 4th down conversion pass to Chase Roberts.
Yeah, and if it wasn't even that great of a pass. He had to jump and stretch and hang on to it.
It's a great play by Chase. And then the run, and what a heady play by Jake going down the sideline, looking up at the clock, going, I've got time. I can get 25 more yards. Then I'm going to get down. Then we can clock it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, all that had to be going through his mind. He cut back inside. He got BYU down in striking distance. And so there was that entire drive was a series of big-time decisions and big-time plays. And we all will remember the Darius Lassiter touchdown, but I'm going to choose to put in my memory bank, in my mind, the fourth down catch by Chase Roberts and the great run by Jake.
That was a good one.
Yep.
A shout out to some folks on the live stream. Chuck from Seattle, Adam from San Antonio, Jael from Pleasant Hill, California. That's in the Bay Area. Carlos from Orem, Linda from Saratoga Springs, and folks from all over the world. We're just getting started tonight. Elder Clark Gilbert's going to join us in just a few minutes. So BYU wins. They're 7-0. Head coach Kalani Sitaki addressed the media a short time ago, setting the stage for Central Florida this week and wrapping up Oklahoma State last week. So a couple of minutes now with the head coach. Here's what he is saying today.
All right, well, looking forward to this next game. Had a good weekend. Obviously had time to watch the film and to get some things going for today's practice. Feel really good about the team and the overall mindset of the team, but definitely have some things that we need to address. But I love the team dynamic, the leadership on our program, the way the guys are getting coached, and so just got to keep building on it. You know, I think you guys heard me talk enough about the game post game. I thought it was a good experience, good environment. Man, the fans are awesome. I can't say that enough, and just really enjoyed the overall experience, especially getting that victory and the way we did it. But looking forward to a new week and looking forward to this challenge. You know, we have a really good UCF team that we're going out to visit in Orlando, and so tons of talent, well coached. Gus Malzahn's a really good coach. A really good person, and I've got to know him quite a bit through all the coaches' things and the events, and have a really good relationship with him. Love the way he coaches his team, and really looking forward to this matchup. I think there's a lot of things that they do that could cause some issues for us. It did a little bit over this last weekend, but looking at the matchups, we know we're going to get their best shot. And you look at what UCF did against Iowa State. They pretty much had a really close game, could have came out with the victory. So it's definitely got our attention, got our players' attention. So it's we know we're going to get their best shot. We're going into their home, and we're going into Florida. We look forward to seeing our fans there too, but we know it's going to be a difficult environment to play in. But we're looking forward to the matchup, and looking forward to being in Florida, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. My wife's a Florida girl. She's from Polk County, from Haines City High, and so I know the area really well. And we're my family. We're in Orlando quite a bit, so looking forward to seeing the in-laws and seeing the family and everyone there. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I do like the matchup because I think UCF's going to get a lot of. I mean, every week we're seeing these teams get a lot out of us and testing us, which is helping the program, and we're learning a lot of lessons along the way. So really do like the matchup, though. We know we're going to get their best shot, and I say it every week. We just got to make sure we give them our best shot as well, and we live with the results. But we got to stay humble, stay hungry. A lot of good things are happening for our program, but we got to keep working, and this week no different than any other week. We just got to find ways to get better and stay humble and find ways to improve. That's going to be the key for us.
Kalani Sitaki from this afternoon. Christian Razban, by the way, he's the alumni chair for Central Florida for BYU. He's going to join us live later in the show, talk about all the activities around the game on Saturday, the service project that everybody's involved in, and how you can get involved even if you're not going to Orlando for the game. So that's coming up later tonight. It looks like, and they're going on Thursday, so they practically have their bags packed already, don't they?
They're getting ready to go. It's a short week because of the travel day.
Yeah.
But last week was a shorter week because of a Friday night game, and so they'll maximize what they've got done. I know that the coaches right after that Oklahoma State game, while we were late on our shows, they were already back breaking down film and giving out grades and doing all that so that they could get going full speed first thing this morning on Central Florida. So they'll be ready to roll, and unlike this last week, when they go into a game and they're really not quite sure what to expect at quarterback with Rangel in there instead of Bauman, they now have a whole game film of Ja'Curry Brown. And so they'll be more prepared for what Central Florida is going to do this next week than perhaps they were defensively with a brand new quarterback after a bye week for Oklahoma State. And Central Florida just had a rough game on the road that they lost at Iowa State. So they have this same, if not a little less time to prepare. I really feel like you give Mike Gundy an extra week to prepare like he did at Oklahoma State, and he changes quarterbacks, and they do a bunch of different things on offense, and they do some wrinkles on defense that they hadn't seen. Mike Gundy's the master of the midseason turnaround and has been for years, and I would not be surprised to see Oklahoma State kind of move forward, although did we ever get word on what happened to their quarterback?
I don't know.
Was
It
that
looked
a
like
broken
his shoulder.
collarbone or shoulder or something? Yeah, it didn't look good.
Harold from Springville is in. Eric checking in from sunny Singapore. He says, best Saturday morning ever because it was Saturday morning when BYU beat Oklahoma State. Fantastic.
What time is it in Singapore right now? Check.
It's like 10 a.m. or something.
Remind us of that, because we always love to know what time you're watching. We know it's tomorrow there, and we're just glad you're here with us.
Here's what we liked. We liked BYU's resiliency in that football game. We loved that the Cougars averaged 7.1 yards per carry. We loved that there were just 3 penalties combined, kept things moving along. BYU had just 2 penalties. There were no punts in the game. And you know what else we love? We love those drones floating above the stadium. What the heck? That was awesome.
Even Oklahoma State's associate athletic director was at the game, and he tweeted out that he's been in more than 30 stadiums around the country in big-time venues, and he said this was something special. It was unique and unbelievable. Everybody says that. Even Mike Gundy said, in his post-game interview, he said that's one great game day experience for everybody. And he said, this is a great addition to our conference. He was very impressed by it as well.
Eric says it's 8:18 a.m.
8:18 a.m. Eric, way to go. Way to be in here with us.
Roger's with us from Mount Dora, Florida, and David from up in Heber City,
they said
Utah.
So they said, Roger says they're going to be at the game on Saturday.
Sweet.
Let's go.
Savannah, Georgia, checking in. Justin, good to have you with us. Here's what we didn't like: 3 turnovers in the first half.
Yeah, that was killer.
Yeah, and they were bad turnovers. 2 of them cost points.
Yeah.
And then 269 yards rushing allowed. We didn't like. BYU struggled to contain the quarterback all game long. Rangel, and you talked about a moment ago, he was just different enough, and the defensive ends went inside on the fakes instead of holding their ground, and he turned the corner. Ironically, he got hurt, knocked out of the game after a 50-yard run.
Yeah, and BYU's backside took the cheese, as our colleague Brian Logan likes to call it, when they were running that zone read where he reads the backside player, and we'll talk about this on AFR tomorrow, and those backside guys, whether it's the end or back or whoever's assignment that is, they have to stay home and stay square to the line of scrimmage, and too many times in that game, those guys were chasing running backs that didn't have the ball, and that was a departure from the way BYU's played this year defensively. They've been really gap sound and assignment sound, but I don't think they expected a heavy dose of that zone read stuff.
No.
Didn't know what to expect from Rangel, and they had been getting ready to tee off and go rush the passer, because with Bauman as a quarterback, they might throw it 55 times in a game.
Before we do our Cougarboard question of the week, let's go over Blaine's keys to beating Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
Each week we lay out 3 things that are going to happen, and then we look at them and see if they did happen. And usually they do. But number 1, no big plays over the top.
They got some big plays, but they didn't get them over the top. And I think if they'd gotten, some 60 and 70-yard touchdowns, it might have been a different result. So I'm going to give them. I didn't like the big plays, but they technically didn't give any over the top. And so I'll give them a check for that. It's not a big check; it's a little check.
Shout out to Rick joining us from Tokyo on the live stream.
All right,
tonight.
Rick. Say hi to Corey Yoshimura.
Yeah, you just see him in the subway. You should just see him in the subway.
Hopefully you see him over there.
Win the turnover margin, create short fields. BYU had 3 turnovers. Oklahoma State had 2, but the Cougars turned their 2 turnovers into 14 points.
Yeah, we're going to give them a minus on it because they were minus in turnover margin. That's why the game was close. Okay. If BYU does their typical thing and forces 2 turnovers and gets 14 points and doesn't turn it over, they win this game going away. It's not close.
Third thing, contain the Oklahoma State running game. They averaged 7.3 yards a carry.
Yeah, did not do it.
No. And somehow we still won the game.
It's remarkable that they won.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's because the offense showed up in a big, big way, especially in the second half. They scored on every drive.
Yeah, they got 4. They scored 4 times.
Yeah,
and they had to.
That's remarkable. And so, hey, kudos and my hat's off to the offense. They haven't won a game like that this year. And they just proved that when they're not doing what they normally do, the other side maybe can step it up and win a game. Offense won the game.
After further review, tomorrow, 5 o'clock Mountain Time on the BYU TV app and ESPN+. We'll break down the Oklahoma State game, what worked, what didn't. We'll show you why, and then we'll preview Central Florida. We call it the best hour of BYU football on TV. It's on the BYU TV app and ESPN+ tomorrow at 5. Elder Clark Gilbert just a few minutes away from joining us for a fascinating conversation that we think you'll like from all around the world on our live stream and on our social media channels.
Did you talk about the article you wrote today yet?
Yeah.
Oh, you already talked about that?
Yeah.
Oh, you got to read it.
I had it in a note, and then I threw it early because it was Lassiter, and was it the 84?
Yeah.
Kyle Morrell.
It's a great article. I love the article. You guys have to read that article in the Desert News today.
Surprises in the Big 12. Baylor beat Texas Tech 59-35. Where did that come from?
Yeah.
Texas Tech was tied with BYU in first place.
The fact that they got 59 to Baylor is surprising. Yes.
Colorado went to Arizona and beat them 34-7. What's going on with Arizona?
Did we break Arizona last week?
It feels like we might have.
We might have broke them.
Iowa State had UCF at home, and they had to score with 30 seconds left to win the game 38-35, which is the same score that BYU won by, having scored in the final seconds.
It's
that
crazy.
Was a surprise.
And you know what surprised me? But again, Central Florida changed quarterbacks and came with a bunch of different wrinkles to the offense. Iowa State's a very good run defensive football team and very physical. I was surprised at how Central Florida got so many big plays in the run game against them. That really surprised me. Iowa State's usually more disciplined than that.
BYU is 11. Iowa State's 10, Kansas State 16. Those are the Big 12 teams in the AP 25. And here's something interesting that we love doing, bowl projections for this week. All right, as we sit right now, and remember we sat here all summer. We also sat here all last season.
We were just hoping for a Pop-Tarts bowl.
But as we sit right now, ESPN projects BYU to play Ohio State in the first round of the college football playoff.
Yeah. Jerry Palm, the CBS analyst, has them first round against Alabama. Now remember, in the first round, you play at the higher seeded team. So this would be at Ohio State in the Horseshoe, which would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
Or in Tuscaloosa against Bama. How fun would that be? I'd rather play Bama, by the way.
Dirk from Deming, New Mexico, in on the live stream. 24/7 Sports, they've got BYU in the quarterfinals playing Texas. They've got BYU as a first-round bye, having won the Big 12 championship.
Remember, if they win the Big 12, they do not play in the first
round.
round.
And those are at neutral places that are warm.
They'll be the 4 seed if they win the Big 12, because obviously the Big 10 champion is going to be the 1 seed or a 2 seed. SEC champion is going to be a 1 seed or a 2 seed. So the Big 12 champion is either going to be a 3 seed or 4 seed. So you're getting a bye in the first round. And that's going to be at one of the big bowls, like the Rose Bowl's part of that right now.
Yeah, Fiesta
the
Bowl's
Sugar
in there.
Bowl's part of that. The
Warm
Fiesta
places.
Bowl's part of that. And the Peach Bowl. The 4 semis are the Peach Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, and the Rose Bowl this year.
We're going to ask Elder Gilbert a question. If BYU's hosting a playoff game in January or late December in Provo, is he going to be down there on the sideline with everybody else?
I hope he is.
It'll be like 10 below 0.
Yeah.
It won't be 10 below, but
we'll be there.
Remember that San Diego State game we did on December 12th? Coldest night of our lives? Yeah, these games are after December 12th.
Well, we're going to we have those big puffy coats that you and I are going to wear. With
How about
the hoods.
Brett McMurphy, Action Sports? He's got BYU playing at Penn State in the first round.
Any one of those stadiums are just some of the best stadiums in the world. So fun. Penn State's over 100,000. Alabama, it's about 100,000. Ohio State is, I think, just under 100,000.
Texas is over that. But if we play Texas according to 24/7 Sports, it'll be at a neutral place.
That'll be in one of the bowls.
Isn't it crazy that we're in that conversation?
I love it.
I mean, we watched the team get there, but you're talking about Ohio State, Alabama, Texas, and BYU.
Here's the thing. I feel like if they take care of business this week, I love who they finish with and where.
Yeah.
I just feel like this is the toughest matchup left because how they ran the ball this last week against Iowa State, who's very good, and it's on the road, on the East Coast, 2 time zones. If they can figure out a way to win this game this week, I like them being in the college football playoff at that point.
Big 12 standings, BYU and Iowa State are tied for first at 4-0. Kansas State, Texas Tech, Cincinnati, and Colorado are all tied at 3-1. Remember, BYU's got the tiebreaker over Kansas State. Kansas State plays Iowa State on the final Saturday of the Big 12
Kansas
regular
State's
season.
looking really good right now. Avery Johnson's playing out of his mind. Like, they're playing really well. They're blowing people out.
Iowa State and Baylor have byes this week. Roll down the rest of the schedule for us.
And so, Oklahoma State, Baylor said Kansas is at number 16, Kansas State. West Virginia at Arizona, Cincinnati at Colorado, Texas Tech at TCU, and one we're really interested in with all the changes going on, Utah at Houston.
Yeah, don't count out Houston in that one. They're gonna. Houston's probably gonna win that game.
What's Utah doing right now?
I'm not sure.
They just let go Andy Ludwig, who's been the offensive coordinator when they won a Sugar Bowl with Brian Johnson. He took them to 2 Rose Bowls, and they just, I don't know if they let him go or if Andy just said enough is enough and I'm out, or what happened. We don't really know the details. But they're going down to Houston without Andy Ludwig as the offensive coordinator next week. I'm really interested to see how that goes with a freshman quarterback. Wow.
Yeah, something's broken up there.
Yeah, it's messed up.
National games of note, number 5, Texas. They're at number 25, Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's like
those are
one
two
of the
things
great
I never
stories.
thought I'd ever hear somebody say. Number 25 in Vanderbilt.
Yeah. Number 21, Missouri's at number 15, Alabama. Number 8, LSU is at number 14, Texas A&M. So LSU's ahead of BYU in the poll, so we'll keep an eye on that. And then
Go A&M.
Number 12, Notre Dame is at number 24, Navy. Let's do our Cougarboard question of the week, and then we'll bring in our special guest. By the way, James Gilbert is on the live stream, so pressure is on to hear Dad. And we love it when...
He said go, Elder Gilbert, and we're like, same last name, what's going on here?
Yeah, we love the pressure.
Then he claimed you.
Pressure's on. All right, here's the Cougarboard question of the week. And if you're not familiar with Cougarboard, it's the largest online community of BYU fans. Thousands of posts every day. This question comes from Dilbert, one of their insider subscribers. And Dilbert asked, did Oklahoma State expose a weakness in our run defense that other teams can also exploit? Or was the performance of our defense against the Cowboys' rushing attack due to something unique about that game? That's a great question heading into a team against that features the number 1 rusher in the Big 12.
Right, and the based on last week, the guy that looks like he's the best quarterback rusher in the league as well. Now, keep in mind, he only threw for 62 yards last week. This is Ja'Cory Brown. I think it's a unique thing where Oklahoma State had a bye. They did a lot of things different than they've done. They've had to rely big time on the pass. Ollie Gordon hasn't been able to really run the ball, but the quarterback that's been playing, Bauman, has not been a guy that has been involved in the run game at all. So BYU prepared thinking, well, we don't know what they're going to do with this new quarterback. We really haven't really seen this new quarterback. And with that extra week off, they came and they put a bunch of quarterback run game plays in, and BYU's guys on the edge were not disciplined against the quarterback run. BYU's played similar offenses already this year where the quarterback's big time involved in the run game, but they planned for it, they schemed for it, they did a great job with it. I think Central Florida is not a secret what they're going to do now that Brown just played Iowa State. He's heavily involved in the run game. They know how they use him in the run game. They know how good Harvey is. They'll be much more prepared to stop the run game and the quarterback run game against UCF because that's what they do. Oklahoma State was a big departure from what they've done the rest of the season. And because the quarterback was so good, it opened up some things for Ollie Gordon. And then you saw the real Ollie Gordon, the one that was the Doak Walker Award winner last year.
Looking forward to that. And of course, game day. We'll have full coverage for 2 hours on Saturday on BYU TV. Our guest tonight is a General Authority 70 and Church Commissioner of Education for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He's also a former president of BYU Idaho and president and CEO of both the Deseret News and Deseret Digital Media. He earned his doctorate at Harvard, his master's at Stanford, and did his undergrad at BYU. That's something else that Blaine and I have in common with him.
Exactly.
His Cougars are ranked 7-0, and they're ranked number 11 in the country. A pleasure to welcome Elder Clark Gilbert to the Wise Guys. What do you think of the place?
You guys have a great setup. It looks just like my basement.
Does it really?
We don't. You're one of the few that knows where we are. So,
Yeah.
And for security reasons, we just tell them we're in an undisclosed location somewhere in Provo.
But it's like the ultimate Cougar fan cave. And we had to add some teams when the league expanded, so we had to move some things around.
Yeah, Utah's way over there behind
They're in the corner. We had some complaints early that the U was too predominant on the wall, so we moved it.
We had to move it.
So we had to do that. Hey, let's start with some really hard questions. What'd you think of that game Saturday or Friday?
It was so fun, and I don't get to go to a lot of games.
Right.
I'm usually on an assignment for the church. And the assignment I had last weekend was move to another date, and suddenly I found myself able to join, and it was great. We were there with all of our family and my nephews and my sons, and it was just a wonderful setting.
Did you just sit out in the stands with the family, or were you up in the box?
We were in a separate area with just our family.
Oh, nice.
I hope you had a heater. We had a heater over at our BYU TV compound.
I want to know, did your family go crazy like Dave and I did when they completed that last catch?
It was amazing. And when they scored right before the end of that game, with 1:13 left on the clock, I thought they shouldn't have done that. When
we thought it was too much time. Yeah,
they made a mistake because I knew we were going to come back. I didn't know.
Oh, when Oklahoma State scored, you're like, big mistake.
Yeah,
that's the kind of confidence we used to have in like Jim McMahon and Steve Young and these guys. He had it already in Jake Retzlaff.
Let me tell you what we were doing. We shifted to a post-game show that was going to be about a game that got away. And then in a matter of 50 seconds, the post-game show shifted to one of the greatest finishes that folks have watched at that football stadium. What has impressed you the most about this team as they've marched through their first 7 games?
I think last year was so difficult, and the end of the season was so difficult. I think this team has come in with a lot of humility. Coaches' principles of love and learn, you see in both of those coming out, and after every game you watch, and he's got that team working on what they need to improve on. And there's just been some special things in the culture of this team that makes it not only fun to cheer for them athletically, but there's something deeper that coaches and the players, the leadership core of this team have really brought to this experience.
You've been involved in education for a long, long time, and coaches really are teachers. It's what they do. They're teachers, they're instructors. Kalani keeps saying, it's just so much easier to teach and for these guys to learn making mistakes while we win. Does that carry over into teaching in other facets of life, like win and learn, lose and learn? There's something to be learned from both, but it sure seems like winning and learning is a lot more fun.
Well, it's a lot more fun. Sometimes it's harder, though, because you're not as humble.
Yeah.
And I think that it was probably good that this could have gone the other way, and I think that will get them ready for this weekend. And there is a deep culture, and it's been fun to watch teams over the years. And I love Bronco Mendenhall and the culture he brought to BYU around our mission. And I think Kalani is just so deeply committed to why we do this. And you guys know, we've seen you at games over the years before I had this church calling.
Yeah.
We've been lifelong Cougar fans, but it has to BYU matter in a deeper way. And I remember coming and watching these teams as a young boy, growing up in Scottsdale, Arizona. I was a religious minority, and somehow on the weekends when BYU was winning all those games, it said to me, I'm part of something special. I'm part of something that matters. My faith isn't so strange and so weird that we can't perform at this high level. And even as a father, when I'd bring my kids home from Boston.
That took some work.
Feeling.
You had to raise Cougar fans, but you were in Boston.
But they are Cougar fans. My son James, who's listening, is such a Cougar fan. But when we come back, it's not just that we cheer for sports. It's that these teams do it in a special way. And I think this football team is doing it in a special way. And I think that starts with the coaches. But boy, the player leadership core, they are special, and they are pushing the team to be better and keep improving, and also to stand for something more. And so it's, I always cheer for BYU, but when they can reflect the values of the church and of the university, another gear, and it's deeper and it's more meaningful.
Andrew on the live stream from Orlando, Florida, and Brett from Michigan. Good to have you guys with us. An exciting time. All the sports are doing well. President Reese was on our pregame show on Saturday, and we said, gee, if there's every president in the country would love to have this kind of vibe on their campus, and you've got it. And then, of course, the crowd went nuts, and he had a great time. Basketball's coming up with all the hoopla there. Do you recall a more special time for Cougar Nation than what we're currently in?
You know, there's been pockets when basketball and football were both doing well, and of course Jennifer Rockwood's doing amazing things with women's soccer, and Diljit with the cross country team, and this is a special time, and I think, Dave, it's on and off the field of play, and that's one of the things that is so important to us as leadership in the church. It has to be both. And you look at 7-0, you looked at the top ranked teams, but if you look off the field, you know, you see in my Instagram feed the missionary moment from the football team, or a couple years ago, the Rockwood had the women's soccer team playing in the national championship, and on Sunday, the day before, they're in church. Right. And you know, one of her players is opening her mission call on the eve of that game. And even with all this excitement for basketball, we're doing it in a different way. And, you know, I'm going to read I've got a quote here from Kalani that I just love. He says, more than anything, this was in Las Vegas. He shared this in the
Big 12 meetings.
The Big 12 meetings.
Yeah.
And he said, more than anything, BYU's success in the Big 12 depends on keeping our faith and our belief in what we know to be right. Having faith in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, that's first and foremost at BYU. If we work through that, everything else will work out. And then this statement, Jesus is the great example that we can follow. It works in personal life, in business, and it definitely works in football, especially at BYU. And I believe that. I believe when we chase after something else at BYU, not only do we miss our core purpose, but it won't work at BYU. These teams have to be grounded in the mission of the university, just like everything else at BYU. And that's one of the things I've been so impressed about this football team.
What I love is that they accomplished that, but as you look at the rosters, they're not all returned missionaries. Yeah. Many of them aren't even members of the faith, but they've bought into here's what we represent while we're here. Yeah. And you can go up and down the football roster, including the guy who caught the game-winning touchdown the other night. And those are all kids you wish everyone could have lunch with.
Yeah, and they're good kids, and they came to BYU for those deeper reasons. And Kalani recruits that way. It's not like, well, someone tell him about the honor code at the last minute. He recruits for the family culture, the love and learn culture. He teaches the honor code. And we expect that from all of our coaches. And Shane Reese and Keith Vorkink and Tom Homo, top to bottom, they do that the right way.
Did you see, so my youngest son coaches the safeties now, Gavin, and he came home from the Baylor game, and he goes, oh, Dad, you know what the coolest thing about the Baylor game was? I said, what was it? He goes, I don't know if you noticed or if they even caught it on camera, but like the two teams sat down and prayed together, kneeled down and prayed together after the game, and it was really, really cool. And I thought, wow, that's what he took out of that game, which is awesome to begin with. There are some like-minded universities in this conference. Did you feel like the Big 12 was the best place for BYU to be because of that?
There's no question. I think the fan bases reflect that. I think some of the coaches do. Certainly, you mentioned Baylor. Linda Livingstone, the president there, is a very good friend of President Reese's, a very good friend of mine. She has said, we are unambiguous about our commitment to Jesus Christ. And how many university presidents outside of BYU would say that? And so we love that. And if you look at what BYU TV is doing with the big stories, the profile on Baylor was so good. And you talk to the team who's producing these, and they say, we want to show the light of Christ in our opponents. And who else does this in college football? And the thing is, the schools are paying attention, and talk about a way to introduce BYU into this conference between the big stories and the service projects when we're on the road. One of the commenters said, "I've heard at these tailgates, bring your own beer. I've never heard bring your own diapers and food and books and supplies, and we're doing these for community needs in the communities where we're playing." And it is, my hats off to our Alumni Association, to BYU TV. When we played Wyoming, they did a profile of the service projects we were doing leading up to the game, and every major news station in Wyoming, every NBC, ABC, CBS, ran stories on the service project, and they said, "We hope Wyoming wins on the field, but BYU's winning in our community."
Yeah.
Or when we went to
Kansas State's quarterback and all of that went on with that, they said, "Man, we're having a really hard time not liking BYU, even though they just beat us," right? And isn't that what we want to do?
That's absolutely. And I just got to share one more story on that. West Virginia, President Reese got a letter from the head of the faculty association at the University, or West Virginia University, and she said, "We have a tradition. When our opponents come out on the field, we boo them." And she said, BYU came out, and we'd heard we'd heard about the service projects, and we'd seen these big stories you do, but we still were going to boo you when you came out. And then BYU came out holding the West Virginia flag. And she said, no one knew what to do. And in her letter, this is just so fun. Let me just pull this note from President Reese shared this with me. She said to him, "Thank you for bringing loving energy to Morgantown and for reminding all of us, as the BYU TV page states, football is indeed more than just a game." That's why we do this, and we have to do that, or else this investment is hard to justify.
Right. And winning helps, because it puts all these things that BYU is doing in the spotlight.
Yeah.
And so, and people think you can't win and do all these things. And when BYU does win, they go, wow, maybe the good guys do finish first once in a while. Is that an important part of it? They don't have to win every game, but with them being successful, isn't that better overall?
Yes, and the winning expands the platform. Yeah. But here's the tension. And, I know we have some diehard, crazy fans who are just staying up in Tokyo and Singapore and Germany, watching the Cougars from far away. But the temptation is, okay, so if winning will do this, then we need to win at all costs. And that's what, Shane Reese and Keith Vorkink and Tom Homo and Coach have to preserve. And we want them to succeed. We want them to be successful. But there are a lot of pressures coming on college athletics today. And it could be very tempting to become just like another college team and think the ends justify the means.
Pleased to have Elder Clark Gilbert, Commissioner of Church Education and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, on the Wise Guys, presented by Brady Plus and distributed by the Deseret News. Also pleased to have Mahan Ryan from Indonesia and Jared on the stream from Phoenix. As Commissioner of Church Education, what do you do?
So my role as commissioner is to provide the support to our presidents and be the interface from the Church Board of Education to each of the presidents. And so the Church Board of Education is made up of the first presidency of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So it's chaired by President Nelson, and the first and second vice chairman are his counselors. Then there's an executive committee that rotates in the 12. Currently that is chaired by Elder D. Todd Christofferson and Elder Ronald A. Rasband. And I am in a role where I need to articulate their vision to the presidents. Now, we don't micromanage the presidents. I don't come in and say, I got a great play for third and long. Let's run this. And
you could.
Kalani will probably listen to you.
Yeah.
So we try to keep it principle based, but I really manage the interface from first presidency to the presidents. And it's a very different role than when I was a president and, had all of those employees that reported to me and led those. I ran BYU Pathway, I ran BYU Idaho. Here, my role is really to build and support the presidents and make sure that they're doing things that reflect the will of the Church Board of Education.
Let me ask a question I know everyone would love to ask you, if they could, and I know you met with the First Presidency before this interview. When it comes to BYU athletics, what do they think?
Well, they love our team and they love our coaches, but at the core, they want to make sure we're doing this in a way that reflects the values and principles of the church. In the end of the day, we are the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and our teams have to reflect that just like our academics do or our law school does. And they know, it always makes me smile a little bit when people think, well, they don't know what's going on with this or that. And it doesn't matter the topic. Everyone with some domain expertise thinks they know it, and the church leadership doesn't. And I just have to smile because they know exactly what's coming. They know the secular and financial pressures coming down on this industry. They see the risks that it could have to take us away from our core mission. And they're very in tune with that. And they want to make sure that BYU, in all of its efforts, always reflects the values and mission of the church. And we take that very seriously. And that starts with our people. And, coaches, players, our alumni, BYU TV, and they want to make sure we're hiring people who fit that culture.
You bring up an interesting a point about oversight and what they want to accomplish down here. And I think, wow, athletics in this day and age at this level requires a lot of funding.
Yeah.
You have to have dollars to compete. How is that managed by the church? And does the church directly fund athletics, or is it funded on its own? And what does the church think about the whole financial picture to compete at the highest level these days?
Let me walk you through two extremes, because I hear two different voices, neither of which is right, but I hear them a lot.
Okay.
On the one end, it's we need to be, we got to start catching up. Look how good we're doing now, but we got to be like Texas or Alabama, and more money, more facilities, higher payment, and just chasing after that. On the other hand, I have people, even people who love the BYU Cougars, and they say, Elder Gilbert, we're the Church of Jesus Christ on the earth. We care about repentance and the gospel of Jesus Christ. We're helping poor people around the world. They'll point out, Elder Gilbert, the needs of the BYU Pathway students. Yeah. How can we be spending this much money on a game? And I have to have answers to both audiences. And can I just play out how I want to know the answers to both? Yeah. On the why can't we be like other universities? This sounds an awful lot like 1 Samuel. I know you two are scriptorians, so
but especially the Old Testament.
Some of our audience,
he's my boss in the church, by the way.
Some of our audience may be asking.
He's the stake Sunday school president, and I'm the Sunday school president in our ward. So
we run a loose organization.
He's my boss.
Well, 1 Samuel 8:20, we need a king that we also may be like all nations. I mean, this is as old as the Old Testament. And we've got to be just like everyone else. And, if that was the case, I spent 10 years of my life in Boston. I'm a huge Red Sox fan. Why don't we just say, forget it, we'll all cheer for the Red Sox. Or maybe I should pick a team with a better record this year. But
don't come to the Cubs. We were just as bad.
But there's a reason it's BYU, and you put that name on it, and it has to mean something different. And it's interesting. Athletics on this point, everyone's like, oh, but athletics is different and peculiar. It is not. This conversation we're having with humanities faculty, with law school faculty, with psychology faculty. And a king, we need a king, is a constant pressure coming down. We got to be just like everyone else. And the answer to all of that, whether it's on the faculty, in humanities, with our facilities, is no, we are going to be different. This was President Kimball's message in the second century address at BYU.
Right.
This was President Holland's message to the faculty, that BYU will have to stand alone. And if we don't, the rest of the world in the end will say, BYU who? And he says, if we don't have the courage to be different, we'll become just another team. And so you look at this and look, this is what I say to someone who says, a king, we need a king.
We need to be like everyone else.
Everyone else. And look, we make investments, we're competitive, we have incredible facilities, but there's some things the church does to make sure we don't drift. And this is, by the way, this is true for football, but I could be having the same conversation with a friend on the faculty or a prospective hire to the faculty. First of all, our board of trustees is who I said they were. Second, all binding decisions go through the president, through President Reese, to me, and then to the full board. No one else can bind the university in any other way. Not Tom Holmoe, not the donors, not our coach. President Reese is a singular point, and he does that in coordination with the board. This is important too, there's no direct tithing that goes to support athletics. Now, this is a good and a bad thing, because the good thing is we use tithing for the core work of the church. The bad thing is this could make someone say, well, great, we can just do whatever we want. Mm-hmm. But the governance remains universally tied to the Church Board of Education. Coaches' salaries are internally funded. They are not funded by donors, despite all the rumors and all the speculation. They're funded by athletics from athletic revenue and are completely under the control of the university. We have no debt funding. I mean, I look at Washington State with $250 million in debt.
Right.
And then the conference changed. How are they ever going to pay that out? We don't do that at BYU. We don't do that in BYU athletics. We remain anchored on the honor code, ecclesiastical endorsement, our dress and grooming standards. We also retain the ability to act independently, including who we recruit and who we admit to the school. So all of these things protect us from drifting. And, one of the biggest ways is hiring the right people. And, I look at Tom Holmoe, I look at Kalani Sitaki, I look at Kevin Young, Diljeet Taylor, Jennifer Rockwood, Heather Olmstead. You go on and on and on. These people get what it means to be at BYU. They do not see it as a constraint. They see it as our competitive advantage. And if we end up hiring coaches who wanted to go a different direction, it will be a double whammy. It will hurt who we are, and they won't be successful.
As you balance that, and here comes NIL,
Yep.
and here comes paying players,
Yep.
and to raise money to do that. Initially, when that all came out, there was the question of would they just so, we're out.
Yeah.
This isn't a game we want to play. Yeah. But as a result, the school turned around, hired Kevin Young, and he's building his basketball program, sold out the Marriott Center for every game, and they don't start for a few more weeks. Yeah. And that investment will be competitive. To go back to what you said, it may not be chasing the top dog, but you also are committed to being competitive.
Yeah, and the church isn't going to weigh in on specific dollar amounts or recruits or, that's the job of the university. But we will lay out some principles. And, one is we can never become a place where the culture is pay for play. We would undermine everything at BYU if that wins out. And it's tempting to buy one player, one person at a time. And if they don't fit the mission, we'd unravel everything, right? And I'll come back to that because I have a lot of confidence in our athletics administration and our coaches. It probably means while we're competitive, as you said, we'll be respectful. I think these players can go lots of places. I mean, I still remember you're looking at a guy who left the Harvard Business School, and I found out what I would be making the day I started my job at BYU Idaho. It was the first time I actually knew the amount, and you could maybe call that gross negligence, but I knew I was supposed to be there.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't ask that of all of our coaches, but people who come here are always will be respectful of them. There'll be competitive payments, but we're never going to chase the highest salary for coaches or players. And we have to be drawing on what's unique about the culture. And if we don't, I don't think you win here. And I love that quote I shared from Coach Sitaki at the beginning. It's like, it works in football, especially at BYU. And look, there's a lot of things that aren't in our control, and there's things going through with the House settlement, with the NCAA negotiations. We'll have to work within that. But if it ever came down to the only way to stay in this is to walk away from our values, that would be the end of athletics at BYU. Yeah. And so, look, this is not going to happen because we are committed to it, from the board to the commissioner to the president to the athletics director to the coaches. We have a culture here that is exceptional, and I'm confident it won't happen. There's no other place like this.
By the way, Blaine, Debate wants to say, I want to say hello to Elder Gilbert from Chile.
Oh, how about that?
Hey,
Chile's in the house.
Chile's in the house.
We get South America
Buenos
a lot.
noches, adelante con valor.
There you go. There you go. It's interesting because as I listen to you talk, Dave and I are close enough to it that we hear that sometimes we don't share these because we can't, but the inside recruiting stories from some of these current basketball players. I think of Yegor Demon's recruitment, and we're not going to get into all of it, but I can say that the football and basketball programs, along with all the others, they just don't go after anyone. And Dave and I had lunch with Kevin Young, and he echoed exactly what Kalani's told me over and over and over again as we walk around the neighborhood, and that is, there's a list of players, and it can't just be these are the top 10 players in the country. It has to be, hey, here's the top 20 players, and here's the 3 that culturally, spiritually fit. Now, we want to be competitive with the NIL, but we're not going to match what Texas is going to pay him, or in basketball what Duke or North Carolina is going to pay him. But they're such a good cultural fit that we're going to lead with the honor code. We're going to lead with the culture. We're going to lead with the environment here. We're going to prepare them to play at the next level. And they're going to have an experience that they're going to love here. So they're going to come here for less. And they're going to fit in so well. They're going to love their experience here. And going to be a light whether they're a member of the church or not when they leave. We hear those stories all the time. And they're so personal we don't share them. But you hear those as well. That's the way it's supposed to work, right?
And that's the way it has worked for a long time. And there are people who are like, no, we got to do this. We got to spend this. And I would just say those people don't get it. And it won't last. You might transactionally win once, but you unravel the very competitive advantage. I taught strategy at the Harvard Business School. You unravel the very source of the competitive advantage of the university if you do that. And on the recruiting, there's a good, better, best. A good would be the recruit understands the honor code, understands the standards, and is compliant with those and signs up for them. That's good. Better is that this was a great coach or a great comment from Coach Fanning this summer. He said, BYU's honor code could be a competitive advantage because BYU will be the place to come play without distraction. And we can sell that. And that's better than simply, okay, I agree, I'll cut my hair and I won't go out partying. That's better. What Coach Fanning said was better. But then he said, what people don't know, do you remember this interview? He said, what people don't know is how many people we walked away from. Mm-hmm. And, we don't put out a news release and say, we're not recruiting this guy,
Right.
And maybe that's presumptuous. Like, hey, we're not going after Michael Jordan, but we're going to go after people who fit, and that gets to BEST. And if you look at BEST, they come to BYU because they actually believe in what it stands for. And like you said, Dave, it might not be a member of our church. Jake Retzlaff, I pulled this quote from Jake. He said, "What I didn't realize," this was in the CBS profile, "what I didn't realize is how much the faith at BYU would actually benefit me as a person of faith in my own religion as a Jew."
Yeah.
Right? Or, we talked to Ken and Catching's mom. They're a Christian family. Their choice to come to BYU was because this was a faith-based institution. And her son's experience, even now, as he's been here, it's even better. They're more loyal to BYU because they know what it stands for. And, and without getting into all the detail, there were all kinds of rumors when Kevin Young was hired about what he was being paid all this. But, I remember talking to Kevin during the recruitment, and he was right there. He was going to be an NBA head coach.
Yeah.
And right as he was going to be able to reach up and grab that brass ring.
It was gold.
Yeah.
That ring was gold.
Yeah. BYU comes along.
Yeah.
And we have to match that or else he won't come. Baloney. He wanted to be here because this is a special place. His wife wanted him to be here. You think she would rather have her husband with her, all at nights or on the road at an NBA every night? Right. And I remember saying to him, "Oh, Kevin, I was in the same position when I was up for tenure at the Harvard Business School. I'd worked to do that, and Elder Kim Clark asked me to go to BYU Idaho. And I'm like, wait, 10 years of my life to be a tenured professor at Harvard, and then my whole career revectors to go to BYU Idaho. This story isn't unique to Kevin Young or to me. This story is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And Kevin had that humility, and he wanted something different, and that's why he came. And yes, he's paid well, but he could have made more money, and he didn't choose BYU for the money.
Right, and people need to understand that BYU is they're going to pay Kevin Young a fair wage. He's taken care of. It's a good way. They're not saying, "Hey, come and be the lowest paid college basketball coach in the country." They're saying, "Come take a fair wage. We're not going to pay what North Carolina or Duke we're going to pay. We're not going to pay what the New Jersey Nets were going to pay on that contract, but we'll be fair. It won't be as much, but here's all these other things." And he said, "Yeah, sign me up for that."
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So church is going to be fair.
He's exceptional, and he's humble, and he's coachable, and so is Kalani. And by the way, this is why I looked at all of our coaches. Kalani, a couple years ago, as we won the bowl game, it was a great finish, and we were kind of limping through to get that victory, and someone's like, "Are you so excited about this?" And Kalani pauses, and he says, "Yeah, but we're just on the eve of Christ's birth. That's what I'm excited about." And you're like, who else says that? And Jennifer Rockwood with her missionaries, I mentioned her before, Diljit Taylor and her support of motherhood in her athletes, or Kevin Young on the recruits he's passed on that don't get all the headlines. These are our coaches at BYU. And if they only came because we paid them the most, we lose that. And that has to, it's a sorting mechanism. And and you're talking to a person from my job at Harvard to BYU Idaho to running the media companies for the church, back to president of BYU Idaho, to president of BYU Pathway, to commissioner of general authority. It was 5 straight promotions with reduced pay.
Yeah, you're losing money.
Yeah.
It was
a great strategy for wealth accumulation.
Your parents must be so proud over here. Elder Clark Gilbert, Commissioner of Church Education for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is on the Wise Guys tonight. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and wiseguys.com. By the way, I want to shout out Richard from Panama, Michael from Cedar Park, Texas, Elaine from the southwest Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area, and Jessica, who's flying somewhere between Michigan and Utah right now.
Can you
listening on the
stream
airplane?
You can do that on the plane?
Yeah, that's what's going down right now.
Well, then she's our first over the earth person on the show.
Elder Gilbert, between Fox, ESPN, and BYU TV, how valuable is the exposure that BYU athletics gets to the overall mission of the university?
Well, there's lots of ways for the church to promote itself and for the university to promote itself.
Yeah.
But we've done a lot of research on the visibility, and that's both on, like the BYU commercial that runs. And, a couple years ago, we started making sure we mentioned God in our message. And it's like, well, we are a religious university, and we're going to do this. And but millions of viewers. When you have a Saturday audience of 2.5 million, 3 million people, we would call it in this business earned media. And you aren't buying an ad; you're drawing attention because of what you're doing. And we see it in our social media, and so it's really wonderful. But again, if it doesn't reflect our values, it doesn't matter. So if it's like, we don't look at it and say, oh, we got up to 4 million, but the team doesn't look like the values of the church, or the coach doesn't reflect the values of the church, it doesn't matter how big it gets. Again, that's back to why don't we just cheer for the Red Sox?
I thought the attention that Jake got last Saturday, week ago.
Two Saturdays ago.
On ESPN Game Day, on CBS, on Fox, about being a Jewish quarterback at BYU. The things he said, and you read some of his comments earlier, the things he said and how he represented, and then he went out and won the game.
Yeah.
You just thought, you know what? Could there have been a better day for the BYU community than that day?
Yeah, and there was a follow-up piece in The Atlantic by McKay Coppins on this. And again, it's not just that he's Jewish, and it's not just that he's at BYU.
Yeah.
Authentically, his experience around faith here has been transformational. I don't think he understood all of it when he came. He knew it was here, but we were with him just a few weeks ago. We had Rabbi Solovicek from Yeshiva University here speaking at BYU at the Wheatley Institute. And we had Jake come meet him. And Rabbi Solovicek's one of the leading Jewish intellectuals in America. And there he is with his Jewish quarterback. And I said to our friends at Yeshiva University, we are so loyal to you. We put a Y on our helmets for Yeshiva.
Well played.
Nice.
But these are bridges that we're building. And Jake, we don't have to hope, I hope Jake will say something nice about the church. Because over the summer, before he was a star, the lead athletics trainer and nutritionist had a kosher truck come serve a kosher meal to the whole team to have them understand Jake and who he was. And the way our students on this campus, in the middle of protests against Israel and against Jewish people of Jewish faith, he's treated with respect. And so when the CBS story comes out, we don't have to hope Jake will say something kind about us, because authentically his experience around faith at BYU has been transformational from long before he became a star.
We've talked about so many good things that are happening right now with BYU athletics and the way they're representing the church. Let's take a look into the future, 10, 15 years down the road, as athletics continues to grow and be a big money thing. What role, from the perspective of the church, do you see BYU sports, BYU athletics playing in the future?
I can't speak for the whole church on that. I can just say, from the commissioner's standpoint, I need to make sure that everything we do reflects the values of the church everywhere we go. I don't know where college athletics is going to go. I don't know if it's going to go places we don't feel that we can follow. But I can tell you, if we don't stay true to our mission, to our values, to our standards, it's going to be a lot harder to go to those other places. And so if you're a fan and you just love cheering for the team, I'm inviting you to make sure you cheer we do it the right way. And if you're not a fan and you wonder why we do this, I hope you'll see the good that's coming from these players, these coaches, BYU TV. We are building bridges, and you couldn't ask for a better way to enter the Big 12 than the way BYU came in. And you guys know, you follow social media. BYU has come in in a way no other schools come in, and they're respected. We were just up this weekend with Oklahoma State fans who left, and of course they were disappointed about the game, but they said, you guys hosted us in a way we could never have imagined. We're coming back, and not just for the free ice cream. And I'm like, why do we give out ice cream on a freezing cold night?
Yeah.
But
sometimes it's a brownie, but yeah.
Brownie and hot chocolate sometimes, yeah.
Let me ask you, we'll ask you a couple more football questions, and then we'll get to your keys to the game for Saturday.
Yeah.
Visiting with Elder Gilbert, and it's just been fascinating. And I also love that you didn't ask us to tell you what questions we were going to ask you.
Yes.
And we appreciate your trust in us that we can do this in a rare setting like this. But a few weeks ago, a student offered the opening prayer at Lavelle Edwards Stadium. She was on Zoom from her country in Uganda. She's getting an education through the BYU Pathways program. And when she finished her prayer and said, "Go BYU," there was the coolest feeling ever that shot through that football stadium. Pathways. What impact is it having around the world? Because to many BYU fans, that's all they've seen, and they're like, hey, what is this?
What is that? Yeah. So for those who don't know, BYU Pathway was started as a way to reach people who didn't have access or couldn't afford traditional university education. And it has grew across the United States, and now it's growing all over the world. Today, there are over 75,000 BYU Pathway students in almost 200 countries. So it's big. Its enrollment exceeds BYU and BYU Idaho combined.
Wow.
And one of the places it's growing most rapidly is in Africa. This summer, Coach Kalani wanted to create some opportunities for his students to serve and give back. And they looked at some options with some of his leadership, and they chose to mentor some of the Pathway students. And so that's where it wasn't just a random prayer.
Right.
There was a connection. Many of the players mentored those Pathway students. And this particular student is just an amazing story. And she got on, and I loved when she said, "And bless all friends from Kansas State." You know, and everyone's looking up like, "What is going on in this prayer?" It was quiet. You could hear how quiet the stadium became, and it's inspiring. And one of the things we've said to the athletes, the student athletes who are mentoring them, this is part of your fan base. You know, we have one of the largest fan base. We talk about Cougar Nation, but we're Cougar World. I mean, no one has an analog to that. And these BYU Pathway students have said to our football teams, "You represent us." And the players have said, when we're out there on that field, we represent you. And it does, back to this theme we've been on the whole day, or the whole interview is, it's more than just a game.
Yeah.
And those Pathway students, it's one of the great privileges of my life to have spent the time in that program and then to watch it just continue to grow.
We should mention that Chase Roberts, star wide receiver, is one of those mentors.
Yes.
If folks want to read up about this, you can read up about it at Deseret.com. Put BYU Pathways in the search bar at Deseret.com, and that'll come up, and you can read about what Elder Gilbert's talking about.
And there's this
mentoring program. It's really cool.
There was a scene recently. They had a team meeting, and up on the board was 100 Zoom connections with students from either Uganda or Nigeria or one of those two. And they just conversed back and forth with each other as BYU students, not as people a world apart.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you know, I was just in Nigeria in January, and I asked all these Pathway students, why is education so important in this church? And no offense to our students in Provo or Rexburg or Alaya, but they were as well-versed in our scriptural and doctrinal reasons for education. And you thought, this is amazing. And I'm so grateful for Chase and the leadership core of the team and coach for forming that relationship. And Tad Walsh did a wonderful job on that Deseret profile, and it is really an inspiring story.
If you add up all of the students, because you've been at multiple places, but BYU, BYU Idaho, BYU Hawaii, the Pathways program around the world, the slogan's always been, "The world is our campus," right? Is this the biggest expanse of students of any university in the world, or are there others that
I don't know if it's in the world, but we have 150,000 students between each of these programs in our church universities, and Pathway's a big part of that. But one of the things we try to do, and this is Zion, is we try to be one, and and that means everyone is united and everyone honors the different programs across the church.
Elder Clark Gilbert, Commissioner of Church Education in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is on the Wise Guys. Presented by Brady Plus, distributed by the Deseret News. We've had a lot of great topics. Now let's talk about something that's going to happen on Saturday.
Great.
BYU at Central Florida. Give us 3 keys to a Cougar victory.
I have mine, but they're coming later. I'm going to see how they match up with yours.
I'll give you my keys to the game, and but give me a chance to close the interview.
Absolutely.
After this.
Yeah. Well, and by the way, you're being held accountable for this because next week we're going to review.
We're going to review.
So, and it's interesting. I'll be, while you guys are out at the game, I'll be in Lethbridge, Canada, doing a YSA state conference.
Oh man!
And so my son says, "Dad, I know you're consecrated because you're at some Marriott hotel somewhere reading about the game after the fact, and I'll be up in Canada, and UTTV won't work up there, so I'll just have to read about it."
All right.
But this is my best take. First, I'm anxious to see the team limit the chunk plays and really to contain RJ Harvey. They have a young quarterback. You talked about him earlier, and if we can contain him, they're going to make mistakes. So we just can't give up big breakaway plays.
That's one of mine, by the way.
Limit chunk plays. All right, number 2.
It's related to this, but this was, I think, our problem Saturday on defense is we weren't playing assignment-sound football. This team has played assignment-bound football all year. Mm-hmm. And you had people try to start becoming the heroes, and they came out of their roles. And when we did that, we lost the contain on the defensive end. We lost people over pursuing, and and Jay Hill will get him back.
No hero ball.
No hero ball. That was in my point right there.
Yep. No hero ball. I love it.
Okay.
So
and
3. I debated between a couple things here, but I think we have to feed the running backs. If RJ Martin can get lots of touches, and I don't know where Moa's gone, but
he was just back. He was just cleared just before the game, so he'll have another week. He should be able to play more this week.
But we need to have clock control, and if we get the running game going, then Jake will just go crazy on passing once he gets them to bite down on the run and
feed the RBs. Are you sure you didn't get these keys from President Oaks? Because it sounds exactly like how he would think.
Exactly. Establish the run to set up the pass. I like that too.
So and again, Kalani's going to have to all the way across the country. Our biggest travel week. We did get the extra day, and that's really helpful this week with the travel, and we don't practice on Sunday, so. I know they went through some things on Saturday, and then they'll have a good week this week. I know, but not to get out of our rhythms, and we haven't always done well on the East Coast, and so we'll see. But
and it's a little easier this week. People don't understand how hard it was last week. A short week for BYU, a Friday night week without a Sunday practice, and that's just how we do it. And they've been successful doing it. But Oklahoma State having a bye, changing their quarterback, changing their offense, and BYU only having 3 days to prepare for it, that's a tough task.
Yeah.
They have more this week, even though they're traveling, they have a lot more time to prepare, and Central Florida had to travel to Iowa State and play in a tough game that they lost. I like this better than last week.
It's set up, and I heard you talking earlier. I like the way this schedule has played out for BYU and will keep playing out. Yeah. Even with Utah struggling, if we didn't have a bye week between here, I worry that would get our attention, and we'd have a risk of a down week. I think we're still not favored to win, right? Did it switch over?
It depends on who our source is.
Okay.
But, we're slightly favored.
Slightly favored, so that's tilted up.
Yeah, and we don't talk about betting
it's trending
on the show,
in the right
but what's
way.
happened is they set a line at 1.5, and it's grown.
Yeah.
So now it's like 3.5.
Okay.
So
Here's the grand finale, and your parents here, so you really have to think about these answers.
This is
5 questions is presented by Strategy Square, delivering connection, clarity, and confidence in business and marketing strategies. Owned and operated by a BYU alum who's helping the wise guys conquer the world. Here come 5 rapid fires. Great. We didn't prep you at all for this. So
right.
You were playing.
Here we go. We're going to start with your favorite sports movie.
His favorite sports movie is probably Chariots of Fire. I was a track runner in high school, and in fact, I'm gonna close with a quote from it. But I love that movie.
That's a watch. Like, that's one of my favorites too, and I haven't watched it for years. I'm glad you brought that up because I need to watch it.
Did you ever pretend to run in slow motion to the music?
Yeah, with the music playing in the background.
Yes.
All right.
Your favorite singer or band, performing artist?
Well, even as a high school student, I loved listening to the Beatles, even though I was a generation behind. My dad's here in the studio with us, and a few years ago he said to my younger brothers and brother-in-laws, well, when Clark and I were on our missions, as if I was in his era. But I think my Beatles would have been my father's era music.
Can never lose with them. Can you believe this guy right here is AC/DC?
Well, we love all kinds.
Yeah.
To all kinds.
But now he's a country guy. I got to admit, in his old age, he's getting to be a country guy. So, how about your favorite breakfast cereal?
Breakfast cereal would probably be chocolate granola.
Does that sound right? Chocolate granola? Yeah.
Did you feed
How
him
do you
that
even
girl?
get chocolate granola?
Oh, there's a lot of options.
Chocolate granola.
It feels like to me that the chocolate
brand.
cancels out the granola. I don't know.
Chocolate
the
granola.
end of it sounds healthy. The beginning does not. So, but we're going to go with it, and I like it because we make fun of people that eat.
Listen, for 2.5 years, we've asked every guest their favorite breakfast cereal.
Yeah.
This is the first chocolate granola. Nice job.
Kind brand is the one you want.
Danny Ainge hit us up with
shredded wheat.
And we go, like, clearly you mean frosted shredded wheat. And he goes, no, like plain shredded wheat. We go, but you put sugar
Just
on
go
it.
out to the field and get some
And he
breakfast.
says, I go, why don't you just eat grass? Like, so he's the worst cereal choice of anybody. This one's pretty good. I could do chocolate granola. Kind brand. I'm gonna try it. Okay, your favorite BYU memory. It doesn't have to be sports. Your favorite BYU memory of all time.
I watched Danny, speaking of Danny Ainge, I watched Danny in the drive to come back against Notre Dame on a big screen TV, that the ones that had the 3 lights and the projectors, the red, green, and I watched it with all these older guys in our ward, and I was the only kid, and that was forever. Cinched it. But I mean, we were at the Michigan game at the Holiday Bowl in person. That would have been high up there too.
Thanks for that one. I'll remember that one.
It's interesting that the feeling you felt when Ainge made the layup, and when Lassiter crossed the goal line this past weekend. They're very similar. Where you're just like, what are we watching? Yeah. Did that just happen?
Yeah, but I had my boys with me last weekend, which made
that's a special minute. That's a special moment, that's right? Cool. So, okay, this is maybe the most important question of all. Favorite advice that you've ever gotten from your wife, Christine?
This is an easy one, and I have an amazing, Christ-like wife. We were living in Boston. I had just started the doctoral program at the Harvard Business School. I was in a program called Math Camp. It was 6 days a week for 3 weeks, all day long math. And I said to her one night, I can't do this. It's not a matter of working harder. I always had been a hard worker, but I'm like, intellectually, I don't have the hardware to do this, honey. Let's just switch to the MBA program and move on. And she looked at me and she said, Clark, you prayed for this. You know the Lord wants you here. So buck up and do the math. And I did. Barely got through it, but without her, all of my service and church education wouldn't have happened.
It's like a General Patton speech.
Well,
right there.
That's awesome. The quote is, buck up and do the math. It's great advice.
I'm going to tell my daughter that very same thing.
Here's awesome.
We usually do 5. Here's a bonus with your 2 parents here. How meaningful have these 2 been in this journey you've been on?
Yeah.
I have an amazing mom and dad, and they sparked 2 things in me. One was an intellectual curiosity, both of them. We traveled and learned and studied where we went. We did reports on every place we went, and they embedded that intellectual curiosity, and then they gave me a love for the gospel. And those two things together combined for a love for BYU. It was planted in me from a time of a little boy. I love BYU with my heart. My dad had been the student body president at BYU Junior High, BYU High, student body president of BYU, the alumni president of BYU.
Man.
And I always knew, even as a student, that I would come back to BYU. And the Lord, I feel, planted that in my heart because of them. And then, He never let me come to BYU. I got it, the year I went to BYU, Idaho, and offered to run the entrepreneurship group at BYU in the Marriott School, and the Lord just took me in another path. But he used that desire that came from the early days with my parents to love learning, to love the gospel, and have them come together in a love for church education, and BYU specifically.
I think back to your undergrad work at BYU. You were on your mission when Ty won the Heisman. They didn't even allow you to be here for the Heisman year.
I know. He's on next week, by the way. Ty will be in here next week.
Great. He was amazing. I was in the MTC when he beat Miami.
Is that right?
Yeah,
do you remember hearing the crowd?
Yeah, I could hear it from the MTC. So
that's wild.
Wait, maybe I was just in the MTC for a game. I was on my mission when he
was there.
Miami.
Yeah, that Miami.
And a member of the ward in Japan called us to tell us BYU had won.
It's
You
crazy.
gotta love ward members. They're the best.
I called that game. It's one of the most electric moments I've ever been involved in. And like the whole night was just electric. It was amazing.
Wow.
The stadium's felt like that a few times this year, though.
Yeah.
Kansas State
was a wild one.
This environment for BYU at home, everybody's just taken back by the kindness, they're taken back by the sportsmanship, and then the sheer extravaganza that is a BYU home game. Yeah. People just can't believe it. They leave and go, "This is like no place else in America."
And maybe this is where I could end. And we're not perfect. And we're not going to be perfect. There's no one in this church who's perfect. There was one perfect person, and that's the Savior Jesus Christ. But we're striving to be our best. And that's what BYU has. We have to be something more. We have to have the courage to be different. Rabbi Ari Berman, the president of Yeshiva University and my dear friend, came and did a forum at BYU. And it was one of the standing ovation from the students. And he talked about his little team at Yeshiva, and I think they're 3A or something, and they went undefeated that whole year. And he said, our players don't just play for a school, they play for a people. And I believe that's true for us. And, those players out there represent more than just the people in the stadium. They represent a faith. They represent BYU Pathway students. And I referenced the Chariots of Fire clip. And, of course, the faith figure in that story is Eric Little. And in that, his sister's pressuring him, like, you are a preacher. You follow God. Why are you running in these silly races? And Eric Little replies to her in the script, I believe God made me for a purpose, but he also made me fast. And when I run, I feel his pleasure. And that's, for me, when I watch those teams, if they're doing it in the right way. And remember in that story in Chariots of Fire, they moved his race to Sunday, and he had committed he wouldn't run on Sunday. And he had to run a race that wasn't optimal. He still medaled, but he knew he would undermine everything he stood for if it really was just a race. And, we aren't perfect, but I love this quote from President Oaks, and this would be where I would end my thoughts. And I said earlier, athletics is for us no different than the academic mission of the university. And President Oaks said, I firmly believe that it is the destiny of Brigham Young University to become what those prophetic statements have predicted it would become. This great goal will not be attained in exactly the same way that other universities have achieved their greatness. It will become the great university of the Lord, not in the world's way, but in the Lord's way. That's true for every part of this university. And I love President Reese. He is a generational president. And I think this is what he means when he's talking about his phrase, becoming BYU. And we are becoming the Christ-centered, prophetically directed school of destiny. And we have to do it the right way, and we're going to continue to have pressures to be different.
Yeah.
And I just am so grateful for the coaches we have, the players we have, the athletic administration, this president. But I'm also grateful for the governance that's in place at BYU to keep it grounded to its core mission and its core purpose. And as much as I love cheering on our Cougars, there's a deeper reason we cheer for them, and that's because of the mission of Brigham Young University.
Well said. Elder Clark Gilbert with us. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
We're
Great
so
to be
glad you
with
come into our
Lair.
undisclosed location.
And thanks for
somewhere
bringing
in
your
Provo.
parents.
Yes,
Yes,
they're
it
in
was
town,
such a pleasure to meet them.
It's fun to have
Glad
them
to
with
have
us
you
as
with us,
well.
too.
So Saturday we'll be on BYU TV doing game day, and we'll think of you in
Great.
Canada.
Yes.
I'll be in Lethbridge.
Lethbridge.
You can text us and we'll give you updates if you need them.
Serving the YSAs up there in Canada, and I'll be cheering you on from afar while I serve the Lord.
We appreciate our friendships, our association,
Thank
and certainly appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you. Great
Thanks,
to be
Elder
with you.
Gilbert.
All right. Thank you. Clark Gilbert, Elder Gilbert, one of the biggest BYU fans we know, and fantastic man and leader, and so much to digest from our visit. So good. Hit so many things. By the way, next week, Ty Detmer will be here. BYU basketball analyst Mark Durant as the Cougars get ready to go. On November 25th, BYU President Shane Reese and Utah President Taylor Randall will be here in studio.
I'm excited about that. That's going to be so
gonna be
fun
a
to have
special
both presidents in here. And they're coming in studio, right?
Yeah.
So they'll be here.
It'll be the first
Wait,
time
do
ever.
we split them up or do we let them sit next to each other and you and I sit over there?
We'll put them over there.
Oh, put them together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe we'll play a match of wits game.
They're
us against them.
they're actually great friends anyhow, so
That's
that'll be
good,
fun.
good. Our next guest is a BYU Alumni chapter chair for Central Florida, who's overseeing all the activities surrounding Saturday's football game against UCF. Our pleasure to welcome from the Sunshine State, Christian Rasband from the Wise Guys. Christian, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. You ready for the unbeaten Cougars?
Oh, we're so excited here in Orlando to welcome them down here, especially after that game last week. I just couldn't even believe it. I was up with my boys till after 2 a.m. in the morning, and that's the kind of game that creates a whole new generation of BYU fans for the future. Seeing my boys jumping up and down, waking up the whole house. Just we're so excited to welcome you here in Florida.
Were you excited enough to stay up and catch Dave and I in the post-game show at whatever o'clock in the morning that was back there? Or did you just have to go right to bed?
Yeah, we went to bed.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm sure it was awesome. So.
we were looking at each other going, what time is it? We have to still do this. So how excited is everybody back there to have BYU back in the Sunshine State this Saturday? And what do they have to look forward to as the Cougs come to Florida?
Yeah, I think it was about 10 years ago when they came and they played a regular season game here. And wow, it's amazing the excitement that's around. I keep hearing from everybody that they're going to be at the game, and I'm hearing from friends in Utah and North Carolina and all over the place that they're going to come and be a part of this. And so, and everybody's just so excited about this season and want to have an opportunity to be a part of it, and that's why they're going to show up. Hope there'll be a lot of blue at the stadium on Saturday.
How many alums do we have in the South, in that area that you're around?
We have thousands here in Central Florida, and it's amazing. We had a conference where we came out to Utah the weekend of the Kansas State game. We were with all of the chapter chairs from the Southeast out there, and it's just amazing that there are. I think we heard President Reese speak. There's now 500,000 alumni or something like that.
Nice.
He was saying more than Notre Dame and some other schools. Actually, it was just amazing. And so I think that every Big 12 school knows how well BYU travels, and we are definitely alive and well down in the Southeast, and we will definitely be there supporting BYU this Saturday.
It's awesome.
Yeah, T-Play just chimed in on the chat and said, I'm coming from Georgia, so people coming from all over the Southeast. Do you have a grasp of how many BYU folks are going to be at the game? Do we know a number?
We don't, I mean, we know our tailgate that we're going to have before the game, and excited to have an opportunity to talk about that a little bit on here. But it's going to be one of the biggest tailgates that BYU's had all season. I've been in touch with BYU on that, and we're super excited. President Reese calls these tailgates a party with a purpose.
Yeah.
So one, it's going to be a huge party, and we're going to have, what would you expect if you're coming to Florida? We're going to have gators at the tailgate, which is going to be awesome. We're going to
have live gators.
We're going to have live gators that you can take pictures with.
Do they just bring them from home, or do you have to get them from the zoo? Do you just get one on the way over, or what?
Yeah, a lot of people will bring a football to throw around. You just picked up a gator on the way. No, it's not that prevalent, but yeah, we're gonna have 2 live gators there for everybody to take pictures with.
That's awesome.
Some great Cuban food. We're trying to let people get the Florida experience, and a lot of great activities and fun things to do. A lot of different departments coming out from BYU. We're amazed by how much support we're getting from the university, of different schools and departments that want to come and tell people about all the amazing things that are happening out in BYU. And so it's going to be a really neat day.
If folks don't have a ticket to the tailgate, can they get one at the gate? Can they just show up, or do you need it all in advance?
Yeah, no, they can. We're getting all that information. We're closing down the ticket sales tomorrow, and so that'll be the last time to buy the full ticket. But there is still going to be what we're calling a Cosmo Pass, where you can come to the door and you can still get in.
Awesome.
Fun stuff. What activities are planned around the game? We all know there's always a service project. You talking about the tailgate. Give us kind of an update on everything that people have to look forward to as they make their way down to the Central Florida.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take just a second and talk about the important service element of what's going to happen here in Orlando. We hear a little bit about what's happened across the country, and it's just amazing that that these tailgates just used to be the party element of it. They didn't used to be the party with a purpose, and now the church has really gotten behind trying to make this a party with a purpose. And so we are going to be helping out and supporting an organization called Knights Pantry. And it's really neat because I think that one of the goals as BYU travels is to share that light of Christ in the areas that they go to. And what better way to do it? This organization strives to help students and making sure that they have the basic needs, including food, clothing, personal hygiene items. And so neat that we're going to be stepping in and supporting that organization that is directly focused on helping BYU students that are in need. And so we're hoping to donate a lot of food and have a really good showing there. We're hoping for 800 pounds of food donated. Oh, wow. And so we have a partner here in Orlando called Light Orlando, which is an incredible organization that does a lot of charity work. They're really diving into this as well and getting behind it. And so we're just so excited for all the good that hopefully that's going to accomplish. But, the tailgate, it's going to be a lot of fun. Like I mentioned, a lot of great activities there. You can come. Cosmo's going to come by. Cheerleaders are going to come by. Great food. Great activities, a lot of fun. We got a radar gun so that we can clock everybody's speed on how fast they can throw a football.
Oh, nice.
I was trying to get from someone the info on how fast Jake Retzlaff throws a football, but I couldn't get that. So
Hey.
If you guys can get that inside info before Saturday, I would love that.
Sometimes
that
he throws a screen 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, sometimes too fast, actually, but most of the time just right.
BYU Alumni Chapter Chair for Central Florida, Christian Rasband, is on the Wise Guys, presented by Brady Plus, distributed by the Deseret News. Before we talk some football, for folks who aren't going to be at the game but are around Cougar Nation or Cougar World, as Elder Gilbert likes to call it, is there a website where they can get information if they could send money as part of this process to support the Knights Pantry?
Yeah, this info@lightorlando.org is the best place to reach out about that information. Info@lightorlando.org. Again, that's that organization here in Orlando that's helping us coordinate all that. Okay. Incredible organization, and so that's the best way to do that.
Awesome. Fantastic.
We've also got some other links in the chat. Alumni.byu.edu, BYU versus UCF. You can get some information there. Also, student union at UCF.edu, Knights Pantry that they've got on the chat here. So
sweet. Hey, you were at school during the John Beck Max Hall era, so you know all about winning. So what are your 3 keys? Yeah. We got Elder Gilbert's a moment ago. Blaine's going to announce his in a minute.
Yeah.
Christian, what are your 3 keys for this weekend?
Well, I think that anybody who is who's watched BYU football and know a little bit about UCF, UCF, they are the #1 rushing team in the conference. And so, between their quarterback and their running back, I think it's going to be really key for us to find some way to slow down the run game. I think anybody who, puts the word out there of stop the run game or shut down the run game, I think that's going to be tough. But if we can slow it down a little bit, that would be my first one. Really, pack in the box and focus on the slowing down the running game, I think would be #1. Number 2 for me would be continue to win the turnover battle. We've done so good at that all season. We didn't win the battle this last game, but we won the war, you could say. Right. But that's one of our best stats, I think, is how many turnovers we've caused. And I just hope that we can keep that up. And UCF's a little turnover prone, so hopefully we can make that happen. And the third one, as much as I'd want to go to something around Retzlaff, I think I want to focus back in on the run game. And if we can, have LJ Martin have a game like he did in this last one, or, all the running back room step up, and we can have the kind of production we did this last time. I think for me, if we can put those 3 things together, we're walking out with our 8th win and still on our way to the Big 12 championship game.
Love it.
So LJ had 120. So you're thinking he needs 100 or more?
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. I think that would get it done. I think Retzlaff, what he did on his feet, though, is super important for our team, too. I mean, on that last drive, the run he had, and, throughout the game, he made some big moments on the ground. So we're going to need that, too. I just think as an Army, I don't know that it's all about LJ getting 100, but as an Army, I just hope we can, be competitive in the run game.
Those are good keys.
I love it. Those are great. I love them.
All right, Blaine's going to hit you with 5 questions, Christian, and we're going to know a lot more about you when we're done than we do right now.
We just did this with Elder Gilbert. It's your turn. Your favorite sports movie?
Favorite sports movie? It's probably got to be Rudy. I've had so much fun introducing my kids to Rudy and watching that over and over with them. Love it.
I cry every time I watch Rudy. I'm not ashamed to admit I cry every time.
It's a good movie.
He's the underdog. When the underdog wins, I cry. So that's why I cry every time BYU wins this year. They're not an underdog anymore.
Well, it's because you're a pansy.
I'm getting used to love the favorite now. Favorite singer or band?
Favorite singer or band? It's a band growing up. I really love the band Guster.
Guster.
I don't know if anybody's heard of it.
Is it Guster?
Guster, yeah.
What genre do they?
Kind of like a John Matthews band or Jack Mayer, that kind of genre. I don't even know what you'd call that, but yeah.
Okay, Guster. I always, when I get a new one, I go listen. So I'm going to go listen to Guster, and I'll give you a report.
We've never even heard of Guster, but we're going to look it up.
We'll look it up. So,
there you go.
How about your favorite breakfast cereal?
Favorite breakfast cereal? Probably we have 8 kids in our household, and so Lucky Charms is a big favorite here, and so that's kind of what the option is, so that's what I'm going to go with.
I love Lucky Charms. Do you eat all of the oats first and then save the charms for last, or do you just eat it all together?
No, you got to eat it all. Yeah,
okay,
all
okay, very good.
Blend it in.
What's your favorite thing about living in Florida?
When I lived in Utah, I really loved the seasons. I really loved getting dressed up for for the winter and bundling up. But I tell you, living down here in Florida, it is pretty nice. Then I really have to worry about snow. And we're a big tennis family as well, and so our kids are able to play tennis all year. We're able to enjoy it outside all year, and you get used to the heat when you live down here. I know everybody who comes and visits, they step off the airplane and they're just sweating until they get back on the airplane, and that was what it was like for me when I visited. But living down here, you get used to it, and it's really been an awesome place to raise a family. Central Florida is really an incredible place. Church is strong, and a lot of fun things to do. Everybody wants to come visit you when you live in Orlando. So.
We'll come visit in the winter. That's when we like to be down there.
So, have you ever been on a golf course and had a confrontation with an alligator?
I have not. No, but I have seen some.
Oh, you have?
Not gonna lie. Yes.
Feels like they're everywhere, but because that's when we're on TV, that's all they show, and so you're thinking, wow, that must be.
They've got to be
you're
everywhere.
running for your
right?
life down there.
They've got to be everywhere because that's all you see.
All right, okay.
So, okay, what about your favorite BYU memory of all time?
Man, I think it's gotta be. I mean, this Lassiter catch was fun. I'm not gonna lie. Right at the end of that game, and I sure hope that my son says that. Us staying up watching that together. But I gotta go with Mitch Matthews' catch against Nebraska. I mean, for me, that was just such an iconic moment, and I'll never forget it.
Yeah, that was a big one. Dave and I were
in the end
right
zone.
on the goal line, on the sideline, right next to where he caught that ball, and we knew that he caught it. We just weren't sure
if he got
the ball in the end zone or not. We were waiting for that officials, but we were right there, like 10 feet away. It was pretty fun.
Hey, here's a quick question for you, Christian. This comes from Carrie on the stream. Are the tailgate tickets per person or vehicle, and does it include admission to the game?
They are per person, and it does not include admission to the game. And I don't know how much I should get into that here, but again, the Big 12 teams know that BYU travels so well that they did not want to give us any discount on tickets at all. They wanted to sell us tickets that were way more expensive than you could find them online, and so we weren't able to get a bulk group of tickets, unfortunately. So you do have to go and find the tickets elsewhere on some of the more common ticketing sites you can find out.
Hey, we learned that in the WCC, wherever we went for basketball, was the big ticket night.
Yeah.
It's 3 times the regular price because BYU was coming.
BYU's in town.
And BYU came anyway, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
We had takeovers of every arena in the league. So,
hey, we hope you have a great time, and we hope that we'll get the word out, too, that you've got that great activity with the service project for Knight's Pantry, and then we'll be doing our 2 hours pregame. Say hi to Spencer. We're sending Spencer Linton your way.
Yeah, take care of our
Make
guy.
sure he eats, and he's cranky if he doesn't. And then we'll do the pregame show, and then we'll turn it over to you guys and hold you accountable for a win on Saturday.
Sounds awesome. We're going to do our best.
Thanks for staying up late, by the way, on the East Coast to be on the Wise Guys.
Oh, no problem. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a true honor. Thank you for the invitation.
Christian Razban, we'll see you Saturday.
Christian.
And enjoy the Cougs coming your way undefeated. You know what? They never go to Florida undefeated, but they're going to Florida this weekend undefeated. Let's try and keep them that way.
We'll try and send them back the way that we're getting them.
It's on you guys. Got to give them a home field advantage down there.
That's awesome. Thank you for being with us, Christian Razban. By the way, his dad is Elder Ronald A. Razban of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. And he works closely with BYU athletics. Between Elder Gilbert and Elder Razban, there might not be two who work closer with BYU athletics than those two, especially the football team right now. And it's great to have the Razbans represented on the Wise Guys.
Hey, Steve Houston checked in from New Hampshire. I feel like we haven't had a lot of folks from New England. So have we had a New Hampshire before?
I don't know, but we got him tonight, and he said he's going to the Providence game on December 3rd.
I love it.
To represent.
It's a
nice job.
little blast of home since I'm an upstate New York kid. So
We had an awesome show. Let's go over a couple of things, and we're going to be quick with some campus notes. We're going to go a little over tonight, but it's been so good. But we want to make sure we get your keys to beating UCF. And by the way, the game day is at 11:30 Saturday morning Mountain Time on BYU TV. The game's at 1:30 on ESPN, and then the post game is back on BYU TV as soon as ESPN's done with their coverage. Highs in the 80s, 5% chance of rain, a couple of clouds. It's going to be perfect. BYU's favored by 2. They're going to wear the royal helmets, the white tops, royal pants, royal face masks. They haven't had that combination before. That's going to look cool. FBC Mortgage Stadium seats 40,000, and Blaine, you mentioned they're going to leave for Orlando on Thursday because they're going to the East Coast, and so they like to have an extra day for every time zone.
Yes.
So they'll practice their Thursday night, Friday, and then get serious on Saturday.
I like they're going down there. It's not going to be that crazy humid heat down there. 81
it's
is
not
nice.
August.
It's going to be great. Be perfect.
All right, your keys. Now, we've heard 2 sets of keys.
Yeah.
You've had plenty of time to come to yours.
Mine fall in line with some of what they're saying. So my first key is stuff the run, especially big plays in the run game. This is a team that lives off of big plays. They don't drive the ball methodically down the field at 4 yards of carry. They get giant plays. As if you watch the Iowa State game, an 80-yard touchdown run by Harvey. They're a really talented running back, 5'9", 220, and is a rock when he runs the ball. Very quick. an 80-yard run for him, a 67-yard touchdown run by Ja'Cory Brown, their quarterback. That 63-yard pick six against Iowa State in that game. And so 21 of their points came on huge plays. And if you go back and watch the season, that's a theme for them. So BYU needs to make them be methodical in their approach. They want to run the ball, but they want to get big plays, and they rely on it. If you make them drive the ball, they're liable to make a mistake. If you can get them behind the chains, like Brown, we've got one game, that's his body of work. He looks like a phenomenal. He's a big, strong, fast athlete at quarterback, 6'4", 220.
Yeah.
Well, he might be more than 220. But watching him pass, he was 8 of 20, 62 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. And he doesn't look like he's got tremendous accuracy. So he doesn't scare me as a thrower. I think you need to make him a thrower. So that's my first key. Stuff the run and don't give him big plays in the run game.
Okay.
My number 2 is move the ball through the air with a quick passing game. I feel like if you get the quick passing game going, UCF will be a really aggressive, and then there'll be some big plays over the top for BYU in the passing game to Chase and to Darius and those guys. And my number 3 is win the turnover margin battle.
Okay.
That's been a formula for BYU all year. Iowa State was 2-2 with turnovers, but Iowa State's were more costly. We talk those terminal turnovers, we turn it over for a pick six and you just give the other team points. BYU can't have that, especially on the road. Win the turnover battle, and BYU come out of there 8-0. So those are my 3.
Those are the 3. We will revisit them next week. Cougars in the NFL. We'll run through it quick for you. Puka, we think he might be getting close to being back. Puka and the Vikings. It's the Rams against the Vikings Thursday night. That'll be a pretty good game.
Yeah.
Let's hope Puka's back in there. He's getting close.
Yep. And then Sunday, Bears at the Commanders. Michael Davis with the Commanders. Packers and Zane Anderson and Chris Brooks at Jaguars.
Falcons and Tyler Algier at the Bucks. Kyrie's Tonga and the Cardinals at the Dolphins.
And then we got the Ravens with Kyle Van Noy, who's having a phenomenal year.
Yeah,
one of the best pass rushers in the NFL at the Browns. And then the Colts with Blake Freeland at left tackle against the Texans.
Taysom Hill, we hope's getting closer to getting back with
they need him.
Ribs. Jamal Williams, those two and the Saints take on the Chargers in San Diego. Brady Christensen and the Panthers are at the Broncos with Zach Wilson. We had Zach on our pregame show from the stadium Friday night. It's great to have him back.
So fun to have him.
Yeah.
The Eagles are at the Bengals. Ryan Rico's having a great season with the Bengals punting the football. The Chiefs with Kingsley Suamati, and of course, Andy Reid, who's been on this show.
Cowboys at the 49ers Sunday Night Football. Fred Warner. The Niners got to get their act together.
Yeah.
They didn't look good against the Chiefs, and the Chiefs beat them yesterday. So that's Cougars in the NFL. Let's talk about some BYU hoops. Big 12 Media Days is this week, Wednesday, in Kansas City. Kevin Young, Dallin Hall, Fusini Traore, Trevin Nell, they'll represent the Cougs. There's some intrigue with Yegor Demin and Mihajlo Boskovic. They're still working with the NCAA to get cleared for competition for the season. It's always a process with foreign athletes coming to America to get all their stuff done, and many of them have played for teams overseas, and so they're in the process of trying to get that worked out.
Right.
We'll keep you posted, but there's been rumors about it. This is what's going on. It's legit, and they're trying to get it done.
Yeah, and BYU Colorado Christian is their exhibition game on October 30th. There's no TV for that game. But we will be bringing you their first game of the year, official game, BYU versus Central Arkansas. That's going to be Tuesday, November 5th, 7 p.m. Mountain Time. That's on ESPN+. Dave and I and Spencer will be bringing you that game.
That's election night. That's going to be a crazy night.
We'll be keeping track of the elections. We'll keep you posted.
Well, the game's already sold out. This is going to be nuts.
Tune in for the game and see all this new talent.
Women's hoops, Big 12 Media Days for the women is tomorrow in Kansas City. Coach Amber Whiting, Amari Whiting, Emma Calvert, and Kemery Congdon will be there representing the Cougs. Their first exhibition game, their only exhibition game, is coming up Tuesday, October 29th against Westminster at 7 Mountain on BYU Radio.
Right. And then women's volleyball, currently 12-6, 5-3 in the league, 10-2 at home. National ranking of number 21. They won at Iowa State 3-0. And then they defeated Utah, number 20 Utah 3-2. They came back to win a 5 set.
That was a
match.
great match.
Big time win. Heather Olmstead, that was 250 career wins for Heather too, which is pretty amazing. All on the same night. This week, Friday, BYU's at Colorado, 7 Mountain Time. That's on ESPN+.
Women's soccer 655 and then 423 in the league. Sounds like a phone number.
Yeah.
beat Kansas State 1-0 in Lawrence this past week. They tied Baylor 3-3. Southfield was besieged by rain and hail, and it just looked awful. But they squeaked out a tie. Tonight they got Houston over at Southfield. That's going on ESPN Plus. Friday night BYU's at Texas Tech, 6 Mountain on ESPN Plus, and then the Big 12 championships start October 30th in Kansas City.
Right, and then BYU cross country, the men, they're number 2 in the rankings. The new poll comes out tomorrow. Probably still be at number 2. Big 12 championships start November 1st in Waco, Texas.
For the women, they're up to number 2 with the new poll coming out tomorrow. So they've been at 2 for a week. They just won the Wisconsin Pre-Nationals. BYU just goes and wins things with cross country. The Big 12 championships, they're going to defend their title at the Big 12 championships on November 1st.
Yeah, and BYU baseball, professional baseball news, Daniel Sheeman and the Guardians were eliminated by the Yankees on Saturday in the ALCS. Great first season for Cleveland.
Yeah, and Schneeman's got a future at shortstop.
Yep.
They love him. That was his first taste of
fun
postseason. That's different than the WCC tournament, I can tell you that much. On this day, October 21st, a couple of things of note as we wrap up the big show tonight, and thank you so much for being with us. 1915, the first transatlantic radio telephone message sent from Arlington, Virginia to Paris. Now we just get on our phone and FaceTime with everybody.
So did they lay down like a transatlantic fiber optic wire or something? How did they even do that?
They must have done something like that.
Yeah, it's crazy. 1973, Fred Dreyer becomes the first NFL player to score 2 safeties in the same game.
How about that?
Fred Dreyer. Giants, by the way.
Fred Dreyer.
Used to wear a Band-Aid on his nose all the time. It wasn't a breathe
Was
right
he on
strip.
the Giants or the Rams?
Wasn't Fred Dreyer the Giants?
I thought he was the Rams, but he did have that thing on his nose.
You're right. Let's see. He might have played with both.
All right. As you're looking up that,
I'm looking up Fred Dreyer.
On this day in 1979, Ozzie Newsome started his NFL record streak of 150 consecutive games with at least 1 catch.
That is
You got to stay healthy, and you got to stay in the offense.
Crazy record.
How about that?
It really is.
1980 on this day.
The Phillies win the World Series for the first time in a 98-year history.
I'll be honest, I thought they had a shot this year, and then they just disappeared.
Yeah.
The Mets, I think it was the Mets, took them right out. 1989 on this day, Houston becomes the first college team to gain 1,000 yards in a game. Now, Andre Ware was a quarterback, I believe. Remember, Ware and Detmer were right around that same era?
That is crazy.
1,000 yards. Can you imagine the broadcasters calling a game where there's 1,000 yards of offense for one team?
Yeah, that's crazy.
that
Okay, by
happened
the way,
on this
Fred
day.
Dreyer, New York Giants 69-71, Rams 72-81.
I like when we're both right.
Yeah.
Rams and Giants.
How often do we both get to be right at the same time?
We are today.
So, Pro Bowler, by the way. Yeah.
Birth dates on October 21st, 1833, Alfred Nobel, founder of the Nobel Prize, and ironically, he invented dynamite.
And it's a Peace Prize, right?
Yeah.
But he invented dynamite. How's dynamite associated with peace?
Dynamite changed the world.
Yeah, it did change the world. So how about 1928 birthday for Whitey Ford, the Yankees Hall of Fame pitcher, 6-time World Series champ.
1949, Benjamin Netanyahu was born, the Israeli prime minister, and here's why he's on the list. So one night when I was a sportscaster in Vegas.
I like that you started to say king because you were the king.
Sportscaster.
You were the king
caster.
in Vegas.
So I'm back there minding my own business, getting ready for the 11 o'clock news. And then a producer comes running back and says that Paula Francis had a blood vessel in her eye explode.
Oh.
And so she's going to the hospital. And there's no one else to read the news, so I've got to come read the evening news.
Oh, my.
So I put my tie on because the sports guys don't show up till 20 after. I put my tie on. I haven't even refreshed my makeup. I run to the set. I sit down as the Channel 8 Open comes on. And there in the teleprompter, the first name I have to read, cold, is Benjamin Netanyahu. and that's how it started.
Did you do it
right?
right?
It went downhill from there.
Oh,
we
man.
got through it, but I just remember just going, of all the luck,
Yeah.
here comes the first story, and the first guy is Benjamin Netanyahu. That's one thing to see it on a piece of paper. It's another thing to see it in the teleprompter because half the name is on a second line because it's so long.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my Benjamin.
Oh, my
Netanyahu
gosh.
story.
By the way, Linda Murray. Hey, wait. See, this is why we have our insiders. Linda Murray says that Dick Harmon reported today that Yegor is cleared.
Oh, fantastic.
That's great news. We want to see him in that first game that we're calling for sure. Thanks for that, Linda. And then another, as Angelo says, love to see ex-Las Vegas Posse running back Kalen Hall on the show. Yeah, we could try to get Kaylin. I'd love to have Kaylin on the show. So hey, now we'll go back to birthdays. 1956, Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia from Star Wars, and 1980, Kim Kardashian.
Our lives have changed
Because of
by Kim Kardashian.
Because Kim Kardashian didn't she kind of start the whole let's do a reality show thing?
Yeah.
And our lives will
We were
never
trying
be
to
the same because
keeping
of it.
up with them.
Yeah,
They're hard
so-
to keep up with. By the way, Dick Harmon tweeted this earlier after further review. So I like that he promoted our show tomorrow. Yegor Demon was cleared to play this season last Thursday.
Nice.
He'll be a hot topic of discussion at Big 12 Media Days. That's huge. Boscovich, they're still working on. He was the late ad, and so it might be taking a little longer. But hey,
Thanks.
Demon cleared. Big news.
Yeah, thanks to Dick Harmon, who was Dick on with us last week or the week before?
A couple weeks ago, he's on
Dick
for the
was on
second
shows.
time.
Yeah.
Our Wise Guys inspirational quote of the week is from Alfred Nobel, again, of the Nobel Prize and the inventor of dynamite.
Yes, that I didn't know. And Nobel's comment was, or his quote is, contentment is the only real wealth.
Now, just think about that for a
Because
minute.
money won't bring you contentment all the time.
But when you're content, are you not at peace?
that's
and happy?
real. That's real wealth.
And you can't just go buy that. You can't order that on Amazon.
Let me tell you what I'm not content with. 7 and no, I want 8 no.
Yeah, that's right.
I want 8 no.
And then when we get to 8, you know what we're going to think about?
I want a 9.
9. You give a mouse a cookie, what happens?
He wants a glass of milk.
Special thanks to Elder Clark Gilbert, Commissioner of Church Education for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and Christian Rasband, the BYU Alumni Chapter Chair for Central Florida, getting ready to host the Cougars this weekend. I encourage you to go back and listen to our interview again. It's available at wiseguys.com and on YouTube, and we'll have it in the Deseret News as well for Elder Gilbert. I thought he said some very
Great.
poignant things that are pertinent in the day that we're in, ever-changing college sports, and where does BYU want to be? And I loved what he said.
He laid it out. So there you go. Hey, next week, Ty Detmer and Mark Durant. Both always great. We've had both on before. They're both great guests.
Because you know what next week is? It's the start of the 2-week countdown to BYU Utah.
Yeah.
So who
Let's
better
get
to
it
have
going.
than Ty Detmer?
Let's get it
He
going.
beat the Utes in Salt Lake, and he put 70 on them down here in Provo. So, and then Mark Durant, as we get ready to roll out this basketball team,
Yeah.
that'll be fantastic.
And Mark always has some good quotes.
Yeah.
He's one of the best follows on Twitter ever.
By the way, it's Christmas time coming up. It's time to start getting gifts. C is for Cougar, the perfect Christmas gift for every BYU fan. You can get it at the Deseret Book, any Deseret bookstore, or online at deseretbook.com. It's like $13. There's a legend
on my
behind
desk.
every letter.
Yep, on
It's
my
your
desk.
C is for Cougar. Keep that in mind for the holidays because
That's right.
I wrote it.
That's right.
Keep
You
in mind
wrote
'cause
it,
I
and it's really good.
And I want you to buy it, and it's awesome, and it's fun to see around.
And let's remind everybody that Wise Guys is presented by Brady Plus and distributed by the Deseret News.
This is one of our best shows.
Yeah, so
One of
fun.
our best shows.
Yeah, we loved it.
Okay, so we'll see you tomorrow on
After further review.
I'll see you Thursday on Sports
Yep.
Nation. You were going to be, but you're out of town.
I'm in Nashville.
Then we'll both see you Saturday morning,
pregame.
11:30 Mountain on game day.
We'll take you right into the game.
That's how
we
we
got a
roll.
lot more stuff that we've prepared for all of this. So join us later in the week. And see you next Monday.
See you guys.